Welcome to Monkey Chatter. Before we get started, we have to say that while we think we are really smart, we definitely are not doctors, and you should not be taking our advice as medical advice. Everything we say on this show is based on personal experiences, and any guests we have on are not on to help diagnose or treat or cure any disease. Please reach out to your doctor if you have specific medical questions. And now that we're done with kind of the legalese of the show, we want to get on with the fun stuff. So carry on. Let's get down to Monkey Chatter.
Welcome to Monkey Chatter. I'm Lara and I'm here with Michelle and Amy, and we are actually kind of doing a part two to our food and alcohol little episodes, but this one is very much focused on the alcohol and how alcohol is in our environment and how it affects us. In a large part, it was sort of based on a podcast that I found. It was another Rich Roll podcast. Shout out to Rich Roll. We all seem to really like his guests and the topics he presents. But this one was a look at alcohol and the benefits of an alcohol-free lifestyle with Andy Ramage. So we're kind of basing some of this on that, but also our own experiences. And as you all know, from previous podcasts, we've all had some experiences with alcohol. So
Good and bad.
yeah, good and bad. But actually nowadays you're hearing more and more about the bad. It seems like science kind of flip-flops on just about everything every, decade or even less. But right now, a real hot topic is really how detrimental alcohol can be to your health. Um, so I mean, it seems to affect not only your physical health, but your sleep quality, which we discussed in a previous podcast, your weight, your regulatory system as far as just emotionally speaking. I mean, it's basically a brain toxin, and that's what they're saying now. But on the upside, there's so many alcohol-free alternatives coming out in the market, whether you mix it yourself or you go out and, there's alcohol-free cocktails or alcohol-free beer and wine. And that's kind of a new thing. And most of us, the three of us, even though we're three different decades in life, we actually, I think, all grew up in a time where alcohol was very much kind of celebrated. Like you couldn't wait to get 21 so you could drink.
Yeah.
Or back in my day, and probably Michelle's, we had the 18 beer where you could buy like low test beer when you were 18, but you
In
couldn't
my
have more.
world, because I'm older than you, Lara, like 18, you could buy whatever you wanted, like just drink your face off as soon as you turned 18.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, because like anybody waited until they were 18, like, and
Well,
then
that's
like
the
who
funny
was
thing. Like, how many of us actually waited to drink until we were
yeah,
legally allowed?
yeah,
Anybody?
well, yeah, another
Nobody?
yeah.
Yeah.
Just slide over that and
No.
continue on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think I drank less once I was legal.
Right?
'Cause then
Yeah. Because
no.
it didn't have that, like,
Yeah.
that risque
Yeah, it wasn't
factor or
quite as
whatever.
fun.
Yeah.
Totally
And I have noticed definitely my own kids who are 25 and 22, they are not big drinkers. And I don't believe they were, who knows, they didn't tell me, but I don't think they were big drinkers pre being of age as well. Like, not like we were. Um, there might be other substances that some of them are legal now too. So, but honestly, like it's interesting to me to see that the switch from where alcohol was such a big focus for us when we were teenagers and young adults. So who knows? We probably lost a few brain cells.
Oh, I definitely did.
Mm.
So, we hadn't really talked about this, but I was just thinking about this as you were talking, Lara. And I don't have the facts to back this up, but I'm sure somebody has something somewhere. But I feel like, during COVID, like, when the world was really shut down, people were just like, "Whoop, let's cope with this however we can," and, like, drink and alcohol was
I feel like through the roof and people were doing that. And now I feel like it has been this huge shift since then. And I don't know, that's just how I feel. I don't do you guys like
Well,
get
I know
some thought on
you
that
know,
too?
I love wine and sort of the whole experience around wine. Like, for me, like, a really good glass of really good red wine, with food, it just has always been like, wow, this is an experience, right? So, I worked for a while for an amazing, restaurant and inn that had, I think, the largest wine cellar between Manhattan and Montreal, and
Wow.
they were great, and so I remember they took us down to New York City to, I think it's the Sterling Vineyard that has a school where you learn about, pairing wine and food and all of that. So, it
I just had a
was
flashback of our trip to California.
oh my gosh. Amy and I went to Napa together. Yeah.
Oh, yes, I have been to
Wow.
Napa. It's yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just couldn't hold in my laughter anymore.
That was pretty fun. Yeah,
I'm just
that's
kidding.
a whole other story, right? Like, but I so for me, like, back to Amy's point about COVID, that was sort of to set up the fact that I decided that would be a really good time to join a wine club. I think it was, and it was kinda cool because you were and I can't remember the name of it, I'm so sorry to the company because they were great, um, where you would, um it was like a monthly amount that you put in, and that went to support young, up and coming maybe not young, but up and coming vineyards,
I
um,
remember
y
that.
yeah, and it was really cool, and so I was like, "Oh, well, this is a great way I can try some really different wines," I'm stuck here at home anyway, I'm drinking anyway, I might as well might as well learn
Michelle,
something.
was it Naked Wines?
It
Does that
was
sound right?
it ha I don't know, but it had an angel thing to it, like you were a like
I
you
remember that.
yeah, and I really they were amazing, and, like, I learned so much, and I tried so many awesome, incredible wines, and, so fast forward, now I'm, you know, trying to manage my health better, so I I don't really drink at all anymore, and I had to start so first of all, I had to cancel my subscription because, you
Oh,
keep getting cases of wine, that's not super helpful, and, had to, like, find homes for all this wine I had now collected, so, like, most of my friends got wine for gifts the last year.
I have a home, if
Oh,
you ever
I
need
can
to rehome
I do,
wine.
I still have, like, a bunch, but so that's been a really huge so, yes, Amy, I was one of those folks who drank a whole lot more, during that period, and, um, and then had to, you know, be like, oh, yeah, I can't do that anymore." So and I do miss that, and I do fall off I don't even wanna call it the wagon because it wasn't for, um I don't have a problem with alcohol, right? So it wasn't for any of that type of reason, but seriously for health, it was recommended that, you probably don't wanna drink like that. You
Mhm.
know?
Boo.
So, but I think it's hard, and I think for folks that it has some element of, I don't know, there's more to it than just pounding back alcohol to get drunk.
Mhm.
Um, it's or to feel better or whatever and I wonder if we should put some sort of disclaimer around this, episode because I don't know how triggering this might be to people. But, yeah, I just think there's the one side where this is not good for you, right? Like,
Yeah.
clearly not good for you, you shouldn't do it, and on the other side, it's been part of you think of the cultures of, like, Italy and France, and it's been part of the social and cultural structure, so, I wonder about the middle space, when I think about this, like I don't know. You guys weigh in. I
Yeah.
need to stop talking. Too many words, as Amy would say.
I don't know.
So many
Well,
words.
I
Stop.
actually I just kind of found a little bit of research, not research, but this was from the NIH. They basically said that alcohol during COVID-19, the first year, so that would be 2020, alcohol sales jumped nearly 3%, which they say is the largest increase in more than 50 years.
Wow.
Which
Okay, so I
seems like a
wasn't
small
imagining.
increase, honestly, but they
Yeah.
said that's the largest in 50 years. And then they also said that multiple studies suggested that during the pandemic, 25% of people drank more than usual.
Mm.
That'd be me.
And
Yeah.
this is interesting. So the hard liquor sales accounted for the biggest increase.
Mm.
And they said that this is not uncommon during a disaster or a crisis. For example, they saw a spike in drinking during the Twin Towers attack.
Mm.
And then when Hurricane Katrina came through New Orleans, there was a bigger spike in alcohol consumption and things like that. So very interesting that is obviously a coping mechanism for many people.
Mhm.
And it probably is like more the older generation and like our people and a little bit older, because I just don't, I think that younger people do seem to have other ways of coping, or they're starting to develop other ways of coping. But I think a lot of our generation and in our general area of age, I don't know how to, I don't know how to say that. Too many words. But I do feel like a lot of us, like it's kind of like a, a self-medication. And I will say, this even goes back to the medical community. I remember going through a very difficult time. This was when I was kind of going through early on when I was getting divorced. And of course, now we're very good friends and things are great. But back then it was very stressful. And I was having a lot of trouble sleeping. And my general practitioner said, I could prescribe you something to help you sleep, but you could just drink a glass of wine before you go to bed. This is from a doctor. I mean, that was a
Well,
long time ago now. It was more than 15 years ago, almost 20, but maybe not that long, probably 15. But still, that's a medical professional telling you just drink.
mhm.
But I used to really think, and we were also taught a glass of red wine once a day
It's
was
good
good
for
for your
you.
heart.
Yeah.
And I think they've changed all that now. So
Yeah.
it's very, very interesting to me. Kind of going back to the podcast, this Andy Ramage, he basically says, he's got an app too, which I think maybe the three of us can be challenged to try sometime and maybe do a 30-day. And I have done breaks, if you want to call it a break,
Yeah.
because like Michelle, I really enjoy like a good glass of wine, or I like learning about it. I like beer when it's hot and I'm like in the summer.
Yeah.
I like craft
Yep.
beer, and being in Kentucky, it's really like you gotta like bourbon, and bourbon is kind of like fine wine. You can go and taste all these different bourbons all over, and so it's in the culture,
Mhm.
and it's enjoyable, and like there is a palate thing to it if you like food and you can pair different things. So there's a little bit of feeling of missing out if you say like, oh, I don't drink, I'm not drinking anymore. But I have done the break. So like you guys in 2020, I don't know, Amy didn't weigh in yet, but I did increase my alcohol intake a lot.
Yeah.
I was like just a casual drinker before, and I remember the panicky feeling of when the shutdown started and all my friends and we were all texting, do you think they're going to stop are we going to not be able to get alcohol? And people were like stocking up. And there was like, you could go to the curb and pick up all your wine, or they deliver it to your door. And I remember ordering boxes of wine because I was like, what are the best box wines? Like, let's have plenty on hand.
It's so
That was
funny
my
that
first experience with box wine, but box wine is dangerous because you can't see how much is in there. And if you have it on the counter, like I like red wine, so it doesn't need to be cold. It was sitting on the counter, and I would just walk by and be like, "Oh, little squirt, little squirt." So like you're
Talk
like,
about
yeah, it only
controlling
had
your
like half a
environment.
glass.
Right, exactly, like
Holy
controlling
moly. I
Yeah.
talk about putting like a fruit bowl on the counter instead of a candy
Claire's
bowl,
got a
but
box of red
ooh,
wine.
a
Box of red
box of
wine.
wine on the counter is just
Yeah, and like, there was like we put the baby pool out in the back, and my daughter was home from college during the summer months, and so when they shut down early that year, but I mean, we had the big baby pool. It wasn't even a baby pool. You could actually float in it with a small it was like the blow up thing that we got on Amazon. And I mean, I'm floating back there with my, I don't know what's the Malibu and pineapple drink that you can make. And I remember her going, "Mom, what's in your cup?" I'm like, nothing."
Mm.
She's like, "Uh-huh." So
Um,
anyways, about halfway through the pandemic, I was like, I gotta stop. This is not gonna be good." And I did, and I went through a whole like non-alcoholic phase.
It's so
But
funny that
like
you
this
talk about
podcast,
that.
yeah, yeah. And I
Um,
would love to hear your experiences when you have cut out alcohol, how it affected, because the podcast talks about this can really affect your thinking and how you
mhm.
sleep and your energy levels and just about every aspect of your life in a positive way to cut out alcohol.
Yeah, so I definitely well, I think you guys know that I did that 75 hard program a couple of times, and that was one. So the
Can
big
you
thing for
explain 75 hard just in case there's people listening that don't know what it is?
Oh, yeah, so it's this program. It's a lot of people think it's a weight loss program. It's not. It's really more of a mental toughness program. So it's 75 days of no alcohol, no cheat meals, but you decide what that is. 2 workouts a day of 45 minutes. One of them has to be outside regardless of weather. Um 10 pages of nonfiction reading, a progress picture, and a gallon of water every day for 75 days. So um but one of the things that was super eye-opening for me and really made me start to back it down a bit, and again, like Michelle, like, I don't ever feel like I have, like, any sort of problem with alcohol, but I definitely drank more than I should have. There's
on
these guys have
occasion.
been
Yeah. Mhm.
on occasion, yeah, these guys have been witness to me, picking up a pinball machine
Yeah, a pinball machine was the recipient of maybe a little
because
bit too many
it
drinks.
wasn't going where I wanted it to, so it was easier just to pick it up than to swing the paddles. Anyway,
Wait, say that again.
Okay.
so many stories.
Mm.
Um, but anyway, so one of the things for me, so I wear a Garmin watch all the time, and it tracks my heart rate. And one of the big things that I noticed when I really gave it like I started to notice like when I would drink that my resting heart rate was a good 8, 10, 12 beats higher than it normally would be. And I was like, well, that seems a little weird. Um, and then it really just kind of got the wheels turning like, okay, so if this is like one metric that I can track and can see and know what's going on, like what else is going on in there that I don't know about? Um, so that was really kind of, and again, I still drink some, but definitely not anywhere near what I used to. And um, yeah, and I mean, I don't have anything like against people who drink, and I don't have anything against people who don't drink. Like I'm kind of agnostic now, I guess. Like,
You know
you
what I
do.
thought was interesting on that podcast, one of the things that, stuck out for me was when he said like, I think he was in the finance space, right? Was
Yeah.
he on Yeah,
Mhm.
and when he said that, when you go to lunch and he would be the first one to
To
order,
order?
and
Yes.
when he changed, he was really worried that like, "Oh, man, this isn't gonna go well. Everybody's gonna, like, wonder get mad or wonder what's going on." And I really do believe that if you're sort of the quote unquote "leader" or you're the one hosting the thing, what you order really does give permission. So, you know, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, how many times has that happened where you're waiting to see what they're gonna order? Oh, am I having iced tea
Yeah.
today? or are we
Who's
doing
having
it
a
once a
cocktail? Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so I think I definitely am, and I'm much more conscious of it now, right? But definitely influenced by the folks around me
Mhm.
still. Like I'll be at a friend's house or something and they're having wine with dinner. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll have a glass of wine. Where if they weren't, I wouldn't. Right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about environment, I mean, and even though it's not because I feel like they would be like, "Oh, you're not having wine? What's wrong with you?" Like, that's not it at all. Like, they're not gonna do that. They would just pour me whatever I wanted. But, there's still something w that I'm like, "Oh, well, everybody's kinda Lyra, I think you said, like, fear of missing out or something. It's not even exactly quite that, but similar, like, "Oh, well, everybody else is gonna have a glass of wine with dinner. I want a glass of wine with dinner." Or I don't drink beer that much, but I was visiting friends, and we were out to dinner at a place that was like a fish place down south, and, the first few people that ordered a beer, and I was like, "Oh, that just sounds really good right now
Yeah.
with this
Such
fish
a
I'm
power
about to eat."
suggestion.
Yes, and I still fall right into that, but my environment is such that I'm not around a whole lot of people who drink a lot, and my
Mhm.
husband actually has I don't think he's had a drink in over 8, 9 months. So, when it's not around, it is a lot easier, back to the environment piece. If it's not there, um yeah, or if the other people are not it's so much easier to just be like, "Oh," And my one challenge, just my sort of one last thought, my one challenge with all the mocktails, they're usually so freaking high in sugar.
Sugar. Yeah.
I'm like, could
Sugar
somebody
and
come up with a
calories. Yeah.
few, yeah, options that are not like gonna, kill you the other way? Like,
Yeah.
honestly, I'd rather have the glass of red wine that's probably healthier for me than the mocktail with, 700 calories and however many grams of sugar. So,
That's a
yeah.
really that's an interesting point because you're right. I think if you're not careful with the mocktail, then you're probably, like yeah, you're not getting the impairment that you get with alcohol, but
Mm,
you know, but there are a few companies now coming out with these so-called healthy
yeah.
alternatives, and I think they're fairly expensive, but I guess when you look at what you spend on a
Yeah,
nice
you're
bottle of wine
right.
or a bottle
Yeah.
of bourbon
Yeah,
or something, it's probably not that much. But I think the marketing and like back to the environmental piece, like the marketing, I think is a big part of all that. So, social media, I think, has kind of overtaken, um, and like TV for a lot of younger
mhm,
generation, especially as far as what they see and what's promoted. And again, like around here, we see a lot of distilleries and they really create this whole experience
mhm,
around the alcohol as
yeah,
opposed to just selling the alcohol.
Mhm.
yeah,
And that's what you're kind of going in for. And then you're there and you want to have a cocktail or they have a taster set
mm,
up and it's like you said, Michelle, it's it's not that you're not feeling it's not peer pressure exactly.
no,
It's like I wanna be involved in this, I don't wanna miss out
yeah,
it's part of the whole total experience, I think.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so
And the
it's
one
just kind of a mindset of getting away from that is like your meal's not complete without this
yeah,
accompaniment.
yeah,
yeah.
Um, I
The
have
one thing I
found
would say to that.
making
Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
like your own cocktails at home that are healthier, you
mhm,
can make them without alcohol.
mm,
There's a lot of little, recipes and stuff that you can make healthier ones with like sparkling water or whatever,
mhm,
but it does take more effort
Yeah.
than just cracking open something.
Yeah, and, what I was gonna say is the one thing I would say to that is now having been on several things for work, because for us, work is a is a tough place to avoid alcohol because
mhm,
there's alcohol everywhere when we're doing that. And, the one thing I will say, and I still remember this was, I think, the first time I did 75 hard, we had a Christmas party for work. And I remember going around and of course everybody had their drink and I did not order. And I think I even said this to Michelle afterwards. Like there's something empowering about that though.
Mm.
And like just beginning of April, I guess, we were in Vegas for another work event. I mean, Vegas. Everybody's drinking and I was like, "No, I'm just going to have water, thank you." And like and again, not perfect by any stretch, but I feel like once you do it, it does become easier and you're like, why was this even like a like
Mm.
why was it even a thing? Like, no, I'm just going to have water. And then, it goes back to that one of the podcasts I listened to talks about like you identify as XYZ person,
Yes, yeah.
Like so once you identify as once
Someone
you
who
identify
doesn't
yourself
drink.
as somebody who doesn't drink,
Yep.
it's just not even a thing. Like literally we had a happy hour at a bar and I just sat there and drank water or somebody had I don't know what it was, a Shirley Temple or something, I think. Did they not have
Yeah.
alcohol? Tons of sugar, I'm sure though, because I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh my gosh, my teeth are rotting out drinking this." Um, but
Yeah.
again, I do think, once you at least for me, like my experience has been because I've, given it up for long periods of time for on multiple occasions now, like it just becomes like a non-issue. And it does become really empowering to be like, "Nope, I'm good. Thank you."
Yeah.
You know? So,
Yeah, and when you are the only sober one at a party and you
Mhm.
see
oh,
some
it's
of the
entertaining.
overindulging, then you really go, "I have made the right choice here," because you
Yeah.
see people change, like, you can see sometimes there's a little switch that gets flipped when people just hit that edge of, like, they might have been fine on one drink, and then they finish a second, and it's like, "Whoa. Who is this person?"
Yeah, I think that's what
It's me.
saved me all these years is I get really sick once I pass a certain point, like, I violently throw up. Like
Oh, that's the
like,
worst.
the first one is lovely, the second one, if I drink a third anything, it's kind of all o literally. It's kind of all over. So I think
It's like your
honestly
built-in governor.
it is, you know,
I could tell.
and my family, I mean, there are a number of alcoholics in my family, like, genetically, I probably, that's in there, but, I've been really fortunate that it's never been something whenever I have, quote, unquote, sort of abused it, I get so sick. It is, like, you don't wanna do that again ever. Not that I didn't once in a while.
Yeah.
But once I hit a certain point, I was like, "Yeah, I just can't do that." Like, it really makes me feel so, like, I get sick, really sick.
Yeah, and
Like,
I think for
I
me, like, it
that's
always goes back, I tend to go back to the whole performance thing. Like, God
mm,
knows I am not a natural athlete by any stretch. So I need all the help I can get and like need to avoid the things that are going to hinder performance.
mm,
And just like, I don't know, I just really started to notice like feeling more kind of achy.
mm,
Feeling and I don't know if this is real or not, or if it was just but, like, feeling just more, like, inflamed, and I know that's such, like, a cliche buzzword these days,
mhm.
but, yeah, like, even just, like, in my joints and stuff like that, like and then not to mention just the stomach, like,
yeah, the
"Ooh, what's"
hangover stuff, right?
Yeah, like and, a hangover at 21 is different than a hangover
Oh,
at
yes,
45,
yes.
That is the truth. We don't metabolize alcohol as well when we're older as we did when we were younger, and I don't know
Yeah,
why that
something
is.
goes wrong. Yeah. Or
Mm,
goes right, depending on how you think of
mm,
it.
Feel
yeah,
like dog poo.
yeah.
Yeah. But
Oh, thank
yeah,
you
it's
for your
just,
state.
definitely, changes, but it is such a built and the guy on the podcast talked about that a lot, like, you know, how, again, working in the finance industry, and I feel like a lot of industries, like, it's it's kind of expected that if you go out to dinner or you're entertaining
Yep.
clients or you're whatever, that there's going to be alcohol involved. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, okay, so I pulled up some stuff and found that there is about $6 billion spent yearly on advertising and promotion of alcohol. 6 billion with a B as in
Oh,
boy.
B
That's
as
a
in boy.
lot. A B as
You
in
know,
boy.
I don't see, so this is interesting
Yeah, I
because
don't
when we were
see.
talking about the advertising, I don't like, I remember years ago, like, it seemed like every other ad was like for I'm gonna say Absolute, or, like there were so many ads for alcohol on television.
Mm. Or like
I don't
Budweiser. Like even
Yeah,
this
the
year at the
Budweiser
Super Bowl,
commercials are still famous. Yeah.
what
right?
did they even have any
They
commercials?
did.
Oh, they
They
did?
did.
Okay.
Um, but I don't, now that you mentioned that, I feel like we were talking about it on the last episode, most of the ads I see are for bad food,
Mm,
right?
Yep.
And, um, weight loss drugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what
They
I
go hand in
see.
hand, right?
Drugs and food, and not as much, once in a while I'll see a beer commercial, but, not, I mean, hardly, like, you used to see a
yeah.
lot of so that's interesting.
Yeah,
I
it's
wonder
very
if that's
true. Yeah.
too.
I think because TV is not as big of a market
It's
for
all
anybody
streaming.
anymore.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
honestly do. And there might be some regulation on TV. I'm not sure, but
yeah.
um
Yeah.
I know in the thing I found, it was basically saying that internet marketing was the biggest, which includes websites. So
Mhm,
a lot of these companies create specific websites for their brands, different
mhm,
brands and different lines of alcohol, and they definitely target the younger audience with that. And so that goes hand in hand with like social media and as far and not TV. And the other way that they're saying they get the word out is through sponsorships. So again, like
Mm,
events that people are going to is
interesting.
where you might see like
yeah.
NASCAR
Like
or
NASCAR, football, baseball.
yes.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
interesting.
that's more embedded in the experience again. Because if you're going to NASCAR all day, I'm assuming, I actually haven't been to an event like that, but I feel like that's just like it's like horse racing. If you're going to a
Yeah.
big, event,
Mhm,
you plan to kind of day drink and be there all day drinking.
yeah,
Yeah.
good
So
point. Yeah,
in comparison to that, I actually looked up what kind of marketing was going on for non-alcoholic
mm,
beverages. And that one is significantly lower, but it's actually more than I ever would have thought. It says it's about 1.8 billion. So it's way
hmm,
less than
Hmm.
alcohol, but it's still pretty high.
yeah,
Yeah.
So it's growing. I mean, it did also say that it increased like 13% in 2023 over 2022. And that's a big
Mhm.
increase. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
anyways, I thought that was really interesting.
it is.
And I
I
know
mean,
one
like
of
you
the
said,
things.
Amy, or Michelle, I'm not seeing it. I don't see it. I think it's because it's very organic and
Mhm.
not in the organic wine sense. It's organically presented to us so we don't even notice it. It's just
Oh,
being
that could
like
be, now I'm
subliminal.
gonna have to, like, be paying
Yeah.
attention. The other thing that strikes me is that when Lara was talking about social media and, like, that's where people are getting their advertising, I'm not gonna be in the same spaces as a 60-year-old woman as a 25-year-old guy is gonna be, right? So, it would make sense that I'm not seeing those. Yeah,
Yeah. And that's what I was gonna say. Like, I'm sure, probably we're not Googling around and
right.
trying to make it like pick up however all that craziness works. But yeah. The
Yeah,
other
it
thing
is interesting.
he talked about on the podcast was, and I know Michelle and I have done this at
Uh-oh.
different events, is like doing some sort of non-alcoholic or whatever. I still remember, I can't remember where we were, Michelle, but we would do like cranberry and club soda
Oh, yeah,
so
yep.
that people like thought
Think you're
you
drinking.
were drinking and you're really not. And now I'm just like, whatever, just give me a
Who
glass of water.
cares?
Like
Right.
I don't even care. And I think we probably make a bigger deal out of it. Like, I don't know. Now looking back, I'm like, I don't know. People probably didn't even really
Yeah.
care. It didn't really matter. Like, um, so
Well,
just
it
like,
goes
and
back. Go ahead, Amy. Sorry.
no, I was just saying, I just kind of laughed because like when I was in when I was in Vegas again the other week, somebody was like, they just asked like, are you not
Are
drinking
you
or
pregnant,
something? And I,
Amy? Yeah.
yeah, and I was like, oh no, did you not hear? And they're like, no, like, what's the matter? And I'm like, oh, did you not know I was pregnant? And their face just dropped. I was like, I'm kidding, I'm kidding, kidding. No, I'm just not drinking. So I don't know. And again, I think,
That's kind of cool because I feel like in the older days, you needed to have a reason
yeah,
if you weren't drinking. And now you can just say, "No, I'm just not drinking," or "I don't drink." And people
mhm,
don't blink an eye. They're like, "Okay, no big deal."
yeah,
We
yeah,
had
I
an
think it's
event recently. It was just it was a smaller just like more of a personal event at the Salt Cave, and we had about, I don't know, 12 or 15, maybe more people, under 20, but a good size amount. And we did want to offer, so it was me and another woman who hosted, and she brought some wine, and we also offered these little make your own cocktails. But I actually used, and I'll shout out Element. It looks like
all the salt.
LMNT. So it's basically an electrolyte drink,
Mhm,
and there's no sugar. It is sweetened, but with stevia, and there's only natural flavors. So not only is it healthy because it's giving you electrolytes, but it tastes good. And they actually have a new product that's a can, and it's already carbonated. And so what we did was offer 3 different flavors and then some additional sparkling water and lime slices and mint slices, and then we had wine.
Mm.
Nobody drank the wine, which was
mhm,
shocking to me. Um, I mean, granted, this was, kind of holistic health people, but still, all of us there, I know at some point,
I've
imbibed
had
or
a glass of
enjoy a
wine.
glass of
Yeah.
wine. There were
right,
a couple that I know are alcohol free, and that's one reason we decided to offer the non-alcoholic options, but they were by far the most popular, which was kind of
Mm.
yeah.
interesting, just anecdotal.
That I don't know what this just kind of popped into my head, but the other thing around alcohol, and again as the nutrition coach, is it so the one thing with alcohol, not only does it come with are we not only consuming liquid calories, which, aren't really doing us any good, but then the food choices
Oh,
that
Oh,
come after consuming alcohol,
that's me.
because I would have,
so true.
clients that, they do great through the week and then they get to the weekend and it is like a derailed metro. Like, because, not only have they consumed excess calories in the alcohol itself, they've gone through, had a calorie deficit throughout the week. They've, now loaded those calories back in with the alcohol and they've added surplus of calories then with the food choices that they made after drinking the alcohol. So,
Yeah.
that's just one other thing that I would throw out there when you were talking about having the event at the Salt Cave and stuff, like thinking about the food choices that go along with alcohol sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, and we intentionally had healthy food choices, except for like a handful of cookies at the end or whatever. Um, but I really kind of figured there might be a few glasses of wine, and nobody, and it was kind of a non-issue. It was just an option of choice of whatever you wanted. But I found it interesting, especially in light of us. I knew we were going to have this conversation,
Yeah.
and yeah, and I have talked to more and more people who are choosing to live alcohol free, even if it is for a reset or temporarily. Um, and almost, I would say all of them, maybe not even almost, just 100% of them are saying they feel better in multiple ways, whether it's sleeping, energy, all the things that this guy, Andy Ramage, says will happen. And so I was prompted, but this is what I found, kind of, this is like a psychological experience, right? Or experiment. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this because after our last podcast, we talked about the food element, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna do the 30-day. I'm gonna download the app that Andy has available.
Somebody, you got something to do.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oops.
Time to go.
And also,
But no. But I kind of thought like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then I started thinking about all the stuff I had coming up. So like my partner's birthday was last weekend, and we had this plan to go to this thing in Bardstown, Kentucky. And it was like a big event right after Derby. And of course we're recording this, a few weeks earlier. So it was close to Derby time. And it's a big alcohol thing, right? There's bourbon. It was an open bar. And I'm like, okay, I can't start until after that. And then I was like, okay, I have this girls trip coming up. I don't really want to miss out on the drinking on the girls trip. So it just keeps getting pushed off because I'm like, yeah, I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready. But now I'm like, okay, after the girls trip, I'm definitely doing the 30-day thing. I'm going to download the app.
Yeah. I think it'd be cool. I would like to download the app.
Maybe we can hold each other accountable if we all want to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
That sounds
Michelle's
good.
like, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And I do
Okay.
think it, like for me, it's easier in the wintertime. Like there's something about just sitting out on the deck and just
Yeah.
and it doesn't need to, I don't need 6 beers. Like I just want to sit out on the deck and
drink a
drink
beer.
a beer,
Yeah.
read a
Yeah.
book, drink a beer, and just
Relax.
chill
Enjoy.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and have you guys ever tried the non-alcoholic beers? Because now I know the old ones were probably pretty, but meh. But again, like this podcast mentioned, there's some really good ones now that almost have like a craft beer kind of thing. Like if you want
Yeah,
a
I
nice
haven't.
cold beer on a hot summer deck.
Well, it might be, this might be the opportunity to try some of that. I was kind of intrigued by the Nosecco that they talked about. And
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He
I'm like,
mentioned his daughter.
I love Prosecco, it's one of my summer, I'm like, oh, that's what I have, in the summer for Amy's beer. I have a little Prosecco because they come in those cute little splits,
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe I'll try some Nosecco, give a little review.
Yeah, that would be great. And I think that's a great idea. And then there was some beer, I can't think of the name of it offhand, but maybe we can put it in the show notes. There was a beer brand that was a non-alcoholic beer that he was recommending. And I have seen options at breweries now, which is kind of surprising. I'm waiting for the non-alcoholic bourbon because I have to say, living in Kentucky now for over 30 years. When I first moved here, I'd never even tried bourbon, like not actual bourbon. And I have to say, I have become a fan. It's
Pretty
very
nice.
good.
So maybe we should do that. Maybe we should wrap this up and then do another episode where we go try some things, do our 30 days, and then, do kind of a part 2 to this, like after the 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
All right. I think that's a great idea. Like we can all download the DRYY app.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's
DRYY. Yes. YYs. Your why, my why. I think.
Oh, that's right.
We said it on there. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good starting point. We can download that. And then after next weekend, when I get back from the
You let us know what our start date is, Lara.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
I think the start date is Monday. Then I don't know what date that is.
Yeah. Shoot us
We'll
text.
figure
Let
it
us
out.
know. Let us know when our
Report.
start date is,
And I am looking forward to it because I know in the past I've done it and felt just like a little better.
Yeah.
Always good to feel better.
always.
Yes.
Always.
So,
Well,
right.
any other comments about non-alcoholic lifestyles?
somehow
Amy has bubbles. coming out of her
just
mouth.
came up
Yeah.
on my.
Fun.
I don't even know where that came
That
from.
was funny.
That was
I'm
Y'all
like,
can't see us. Maybe
I
we'll
know,
put
it
these
was
on
like-
YouTube someday, but
Amy had
we
bubbles.
use an app where we can see each other, and I just saw like thought bubbles were coming out of Amy's screen.
we were about to see smoke coming out because I have no idea where that came.
Oh, and just a general announcement, if you haven't seen this on our social media, but we are now available.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, if you're listening, you found us, but we are now on Apple Podcasts. So there's 4 ways to listen to this ridiculous podcast. If you want to.
Hopefully more to come in the future.
Oh my gosh.
Hopefully one day you'll be able to watch the chaos that goes on in here and where the bubbles come from.
I don't know, but that was really funny.
It was really entertaining. It was like they were coming out of my microphone or
No,
something.
they were.
Nice.
That was
I'm really
bizarre.
not sure what
I'm
happened there.
curious about that.
I
Very
know.
funny.
I'm gonna have to Google why did bubbles show up.
Oh
I
no,
don't
that
know.
was funny.
Anyway, all right. Well, enough craziness.
Yeah.
So,
All right, are we going to try to
we'll put a
sign
few
off?
notes.
oh boy.
Sorry.
Are we going to try to sign off?
We're
Are
gonna
we going
try.
to do it? Okay.
All
Are you
right.
ready?
Ready?
Okay.
2, 3.
Monkey chatter, monkey chatter.
Who
Who
you hang with
with
matters.
I didn't mean to
Woo!
make it quicker, but okay.
Yeah.
let's
Okay. Do you want to do? Let's do it one more time. 1, 2, 3, and then ready, go. 1, 2, 3.
Monkey
Monkey
chatter,
chatter,
monkey
monkey
chatter.
chatter.
Who you hang
hang
with
with
matters.
matters. That was better.
No.
I don't know if it was or not.
All right. Cut us off, Amy. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Adios.